And one other thing I would say is that the community that my children grew up in, I was extremely thankful. Being a part of the community and the environment that was afforded to us for them to grow up in, because we started out in Philadelphia, and it was a very, very rough environment, and Allah knows best, but I doubt very seriously I would have been able to get them to focus on one juice if we stayed in that environment. So with meeting my Abu, rahimahullah, and he started teaching me about Islam, and eventually I took Shahada when I was about 16. He sent me to a community where he said that he was a talib of Sheikh Mubarak Ali Shah Jalani, rahimahullah, and that I should go to this community and learn Islam as well. So I went there, and then when I went there, I just went there to try to, learn some basic Islam and to learn enough Arabic so that I could read the Quran Majid. But when I went there and I started spending time with the brothers, staying at the Musalla every weekend, and then I started attending Jumu'ah Salat, and the theme came up about Hijrah. I will often hear, we have to make Hijrah, we can't live in these environments, because the environment where the Musalla was, it was a very bad environment. There was probably a liquor store right on the corner of where the Musalla was. Like, you could probably walk about maybe not too many steps, and a store where you can buy alcohol and all kinds of stuff. So, and that's where we was making our salat, in that type of environment. And the theme of Hijrah, make Hijrah, you have to get into a good environment. So ultimately, I visited some of the Islamic villages that were established by the Tulab of Sheikh Mubarak Ali Shah Jalani, rahimahullah. I visited Holy Islamville, I visited Medina Wadi, Georgia, and I visited Ahmedabad, Western Virginia. And there were a few brothers from Philadelphia at that time. We were all sticking together, and we had the niyat that we would get out of Philly together, we would get our families out of Philadelphia, and we would move to one of these villages so that we could have a better environment to raise our children. And ultimately, it was about maybe three families that left Philadelphia when I left, and moved to Ahmedabad, Western Virginia. So Hafiz Shafiq, he probably grew up in that village from the time maybe he was 1 until maybe when he was 12, and he entered into the his program. So just being in that environment in an Islamic setting, where he can walk to the masjid, he can hear the adhan being called, just being in a nice, good environment, none of these distractions that they have today. I think when the children was younger, we didn't have all these video game distractions or television distractions or anything. So there was a lot that you can do, in a good environment that you just can't do when you have so much haram going on around you. So again, I truly believe that, and Allah knows best, but I truly believe he probably wouldn't be able to memorize a juice where we were in Philadelphia. So I made a decision to make Hijrah to the village in Ahmedabad, West Virginia, and he grew up there, and then he went into the Hifz program around maybe 12 or 13, he went into the program. And Hafiz Tahir, he grew up there as well, and he lived in an Islamic village until he was probably about maybe 11. So he went into the program at about 11, and he completed his Hifz when he was about 13.
So what happens is a Hafiz come to Virginia, where we was living at the time, and everybody from Virginia there, they was in the class except me. I was the only one that wasn't in the class. So he asked my Abu about me, and they had a conversation. So then my Abu talked to me, and he was telling me, you know, you want to do this, you know, I'm going to put you in because he asked about you, and you're the only one. And me growing up, I was never a child that said no, or, you know, I don't want to do it. I wasn't that child, you know. If my parents wanted me to do something, or an elder, I would try my best to do it. So I just went in, and after some time, I can't tell you what, but it was just love for Holy Quran.
So I think the fact that we were afforded the opportunity to live in an Islamic village when they were young, that made all of the difference in the world. So I'm extremely thankful, you know, and I tell the brothers and the sisters who was instrumental in purchasing the lands and establishing these villages. Every time I see them, I tell them I'm thankful. And they played a part, you know, that for someone, you know, as an African American, a lot of people, they come here from overseas and they don't teach African Americans proper Islam. So for someone to come here from a foreign country and to teach us proper Islam, you know, and to have people establish Islamic villages, you know, that is something that you can never repay someone for, to give you a good environment to be able to practice your Islam.
الصبح بدا من طلعته والليل دجى من وفراته है नूर सहर चेहरे से तेरे और शब की रौनक जुल्फों से कंजुल करमी मौलन निआमी.
So I'm extremely grateful, you know, for someone to come and make the sacrifice. Like you asked, like, what is my sacrifice? There are a lot of things that, like, our lives just changed that I just can't. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because I'm you know, I'm grateful for the sacrifices and the struggle that we went through. But when Hafiz Shafiq went into the program, our lives changed. And it's just, you just have to change your life towards serving the Quran Majid. The whole family had to change their lives into, our focus is to serve the Quran Majid, to ensure that this first student, he become Hafiz of Quran. And that was basically like the whole sacrifice of the whole family.
When you were younger, obviously, you weren't able to fully grasp the magnitude of his influence.
Yes.
The magnitude of how he has saved so many generations.
Yes.
Would you say that as you've gotten older and you've, you know, been on this journey for some time now, and you've gone out into the world and seen other Hufaz, you know, especially here in America, right? It's, you know, we've talked before about this Holy Quran is kind of a lost gem, and especially in this culture. And as you go out into other communities and you begin to share what our beloved Sheikh has, how he's inspired you give that same type of care to those outside of the community. How has that touched you?
It touched me very recently. It was one event that took place. I went to a masjid and it was a program going on there, and they asked me to open up to recite for the program. So after I recited, I did Darus, just Darus Sharif, and as the program went by, there was this one brother that I recognized from another masjid. So I went to give him salams, and he asked me to sit down with him. So as I sat down, he started talking about the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said, without this love, there is nothing. And he said, this community, they need the love of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said, can you please bring this love that your sheikh gave you and bring it to this community? So yeah, that really touched me and inspired me. Alhamdulillah.
The teacher cannot do everything. We need our parents, our brothers, all our family, even community members to push us ahead. I remember going on breaks from hifz school, coming home, where I used to be like, Quran down, put the Quran on the desk, alhamdulillah, it's game time. And I had my older brothers right there. What are you doing? I'm just taking a break. Come on, I was gone for like 3-4 months. Let me just finish this game. No, that's not our goal. You know what you're here for. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Man and jinn were not created but to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what we're here for. We're here for dhikrullah. Not just practicing Islam, but spreading it across the world.
So you think about a situation where someone comes from a foreign country to try to teach a group of people Islam who may not have had access to proper Islam. It's a tremendous sacrifice with that, even to the extent to say the schools, may not be the best environment for the children. So maybe you should try to establish Islamic schools and, establish an Islamic environment for your family and for your children to grow up in. For a sheikh to come here and give that to African Americans, that's extremely rare. I've never heard of it done outside of the community of Sheikh Mubarak Ali Shah Jalani, rahimahullah.
You are a community. As you are here, same way, inshallah, you will raise the hereafter as a separate community. And I'm part of you, and you are part of me.
وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم.
I'm just thankful that my Abu Rahimahullah sent me to the community, because before that time I would go to all of the masajid in Philadelphia, because even when I first started out, we didn't have any in South Philadelphia, but now there's a few, so I would just travel all over the city just trying to find a place where I can learn some Arabic, get better at the Quran Majid, learn some more deen, and I would just, every book that I could find, I would purchase that book. If somebody was in the subway selling books, I'll purchase his book. So I was reading every book, anything that had something attached to Arabic or Islam, I would read the book. One brother was in the subway, he had about 3 books. He was from the community of the Ansar Uddin. I don't see them around anymore. He had about 3 books, and total the books might have been $30, $40, $50. And I'm just like, I was working some little jobs while I was in college, and I just take $50 and buy all the books. And he would ask me, you a student or something? Like, what? Why are you buying all these books? And I just want to learn. So I would learn about what they were into, and then I would go and ask my Abu. I would write him in letters about all of the different things these different books were saying. And he would write me a letter and explain to me different things. And ultimately, it got to the point where he just told me, look, just stop reading all these books. You're getting confused by reading all these different books. Just go to this particular place on 52nd and Hazel. Ask for the brothers that are there, and tell them that your Abu sent you, and you want to learn your deen. So I did that, and alhamdulillah, it was probably like an hour and a half from where I was living in South Philadelphia at the time, because you would probably have to catch maybe one bus, a train, and then another train. So probably a bus and 2 trains just to get to the Musalla on 52nd and Hazel. So when I would get there, I found out that the brothers would live there on weekends. They would stay there on weekends. So all of the young brothers in the community, every Friday and Saturday, they would be at the Musalla, just studying, praying, and maybe go and do some jogging in the morning or eat breakfast. And that was a refuge for me. I had started staying at the Musalla every Friday and Saturday with the Brotherhood to just get myself strong. So alhamdulillah, Allah allowed me to get a little something under my belt, and ultimately we were able to move to one of the Islamic villages, and I'm extremely grateful because it was an environment for Hafiz Shafiq initially to attend different Quran competitions and recite for different Eids and be able to call the Adhan. And when he was doing all of these things, Hafiz, he was only 12 years old when he went into school, so Hafiz Tahir was probably about maybe 10.
I was 10 years old at the time, and from 6 to then, I played baseball every year, and it was baseball season then. And I said, okay, I'm going to stop everything, and I'm going to dedicate it to Holy Quran. And I said, it was baseball season. My parents said, you want to play? I said, no, I'm not going to play this year. I'm going to put all my time into Holy Quran.
So that's why I'm talking about Hafiz Shafiq a lot, because, maybe over here, 9 or 10, they're just starting to get into the Quran Majid. But overseas, by 9 and 10, they already Hufad. So Hafiz Tahir, he was probably 9 or 8 years old, 6, 7, 8, when Hafiz Shafiq was doing all these competitions and doing all this recitation. So the initial niyat was just not to let Hafiz Shafiq waste his time and put him into the program. But after he went into the program, Allah blessed us to have a Hafiz and come to Virginia, and there was a program you would do after school.
And then, because the school there, it wasn't an actual school, it was a part-time thing after we do our secular school. So I was actually talking about, because that Hafiz there, he didn't teach us tajweed. We were just reading, and we actually had a lot of mistakes, but we was just memorizing it without any tajweed.
So they would go after school and they would be able to memorize a juz or two. And I noticed how Hafiz Tahir, how they was going through the program. And I felt that he needed to become stronger in his tajweed. So I asked Hafiz Shafiq if over the summer Hafiz Tahir could come down there with him, go to Atlanta with him, and just study tajweed. So I asked him to, ask the teachers about it. And I don't even think he asked the teachers. I think he was just telling me we don't have any beds. There's no beds available. So even if they said yes, he wouldn't be able to come. So we went down. We would visit from time to time. Like I was teaching at Ahmadabad West 8th grade at that time. So I would take all of my students down to Darul Uloom in Atlanta when I would go visit Hafiz Shafiq on the weekends. So it'd be a whole car full of young men going down to Atlanta just to see the masjid, to see the school, trying to inspire them, to continue in their hifz. And so we went down there one weekend, and the niyat was to see if he can do tajweed, because we had a hafiz in Virginia already. So It was just like, okay, if he can just come down here and get the whole Tajweed book, because they had a whole, what's the name of the book you would go through? Yes, I was hoping he could just go through the whole Tajweed book over the summer and then go back and study with the Hafiz in Virginia. But what happened was, he said we don't have any beds available, so we just went home that weekend.
They had a summer program in Darul Uloom of Atlanta. So I said to my parents that I wanted to go there to learn Tajweed. So then what happens is, we go there, they say there's no more spots for the summer, but the principal say, bring him next year. He's saying to bring me to the school next year, and that's how I went into Darul Uloom.
And then maybe 2 months later, Hafiz Shafiq told me that same weekend, the head Hafiz, who was a mufti, he asked him, like, what is your younger brother doing? Tell your Abu to send him down here with us. So this was the same weekend. He was thinking, we don't have any more space. I don't think they're going to let him come into the program. We don't have any space. And that very same weekend, we didn't even ask the staff or anything about it. But that same weekend, he was told that to let me know to bring him. But he forgot for 2 months. So for 2 months, he forgot to tell me. And then when he finally told me, alhamdulillah, we was able to get Hafiz Tahir down there, and the rest is history.